Yes.
It, the clinging, when we cling, so we remember. And when we remember, we automatically relate in terms of the past, likings and dislikings, and wanting and not wanting, and
Mhm.
identify with that. So here, the awareness comes should come into full expression. So in the Mahayana tradition, the essence of uh, training of the mind is awareness. Hmm? So rather than identifying with a differentiating mind according to the model we have been taught, we just uh, observe without a judgment
Mm.
what happens in the mind. And when we are able to bring sameness into the mind, which is in this tradition, which is the very nature of our mind, the nature of our mind is sameness, samatha. Why?
Mhm.
Because we can put into mind anything, any good things, bad things, and everything that exists in our mind is only there are there is no in nature of the mind there is no good, there is no bad, there is no uh, uh, arising, there is no passing away. It all happens due to objects. So the good exists only in relation to the bad, bad exists only in relation to the good, and this is stored in our consciousness, which is the continuity, right? In the
Mhm.
Theravada tradition, this continuity of the mind is called the cause of existence. When we identify with this continuity, then we will then be reborn, hmm, on the basis of this continuity. Hmm? So uh, when we are born and when we die, we are born and we die with the mind of continuity. And when we have objects between the birth and the dying, hmm, they are also arise from this continuity. And this is what is to be understood. Hmm? We have explained before this continuity uh, comes from the uh, evolution of the consciousness. But when we are mindful of the consciousness, when we are aware of the consciousness, then we can also start to realize more and more the sameness, original sameness of the mind. And the Buddhahood is nothing but the sameness of the mind, which spreads everywhere because it does not have take any sign of the object. The mind, true mind, does not think, true mind does not differentiate. hmm? It is a mind which moves, which thinks and differentiate. It does not mean that we don't need it, but when we understand how it evolves on individual experience, not on objectivity. Hmm? This individual nature of the mind is called manas, organ of thinking. So you have different experiences, so you will be attracted to different things. I may have also different attractions, hmm? But it does not change our liking, disliking, our idea of good and bad does not change the sameness nature of the mind. And that is to be realized in this tradition. Hmm? Are we clear now?
Yes, so we rest in the nature of mind.
Yes,
Resting in the nature of mind.
the nature of mind in this tradition is Buddha. We are
Yes.
all Buddhas, but because of our ignorance, we don't see it.
Yeah.
So, so we need uh, to use wisdom from hearing. Then we, due to this wisdom of hearing, we practice faith, hmm? And then we contemplate. In this tradition, also the understanding is very important. We have to understand the dharmata, the real nature of all the phenomena inside and outside, which is ungraspable. What we grasp is the mind moved by the karmic consciousness. Yes?
Yes. And
Okay.
we learn to rest in that through wisdom and also through practice, like training the mind to be in that state. Because
Yes.
I am doing the non-draw and it's very hard.
Yes, do. What is the purpose of non-draw? The purpose of non-draw is to uh, to develop your faith, shraddha, uh, because you cannot see suchness, but you can contemplate suchness, believe in suchness, worship the suchness, and the suchness, if you do that in the practice of suchness, according to Mahayana, is already all the virtues of the mind, mindfulness, effort, hmm, the awareness, the uh, the equanimity, the learning, all we learn from the mind. hmm, And you are doing non-draw because to bring you to the faith in the mind. In Theravada, when you study Theravada, when I have been a Theravada monk for many years, you start by learning the Abhidharma categories. What is dependent origination? What is the five aggregates? What is the
Mm.
objects of wisdom and how they appear in common characteristics, being impermanence, being the unsatisfactory state of impermanence, being the selflessness. So you learn on the basis of a differentiating mind. In this tradition, you learn, uh, you use also differentiating mind, but you don't need to go into the trouble of seeing all the objects of impermanence one by one. You have to understand the principle, and then the impermanence comes from the true mind. In this tradition, we speak of the true mind, and the true mind is suchness. And when you have some idea of suchness, then you give rise to bodhicitta. Bodhicitta is the understanding that the nature of your mind is non dualistic. And you then arrange your practice according to this understanding. So all the beings live in the true mind, but they don't see it. And now, when you practice faith and you practice bodhicitta, so you start believing in it, and on the base of the believing in this mind, which is true mind and common to all beings, penetrating everything, then what will happen? Then actually you uh, practice on the base of great compassion and great love to all beings, because the beings, they have, just like everybody, this enlightened mind, but they don't see it, they don't understand it, they are deluded because they only identify with the differentiating mind. If they have more wisdom, we have learned in this treatise, deeper wisdom, then they see the continuity coming from the mind itself. And then the process of enlightenment is very fast. If you only rely on the differentiating mind, on the six consciousnesses, so in this tradition, also Nagarjuna saying, the Asanga saying, then the process of enlightenment will be faster because you are uh, relying on the uh, true mind. And when you rely on the true mind, it will uh, guide you. Just like when you rely on a differentiating mind, it will guide you. Hmm? What you rely on, that will guide you. But in this tradition, you rely on the true mind, which is non dualistic, hmm? And which is the uh, true mind of all beings without exceptions. But the beings, we deluded beings, we don't see it. Hmm? Right?
Yes.
So the bodhisattva has to understand also logic, very important. What is dharmata? What is the true nature of the phenomena? And develop all the powers of the mind to connect to the true mind. And this true mind you can only discover in understanding the alaya. Alaya is the store consciousness from which all our tendencies to good and bad come. Yes?
Mhm. Thank you so
So
much.
that is pleasure. So let us read, otherwise we will not come to uh, our text. And we want to, I think we finished with explaining, if I remember well, that two kinds of the perfumations by essence, which is by the true nature of the mind, which is ungraspable. Hmm? Then by the characteristics, this characteristics is the uh, the purity of the mind. Hmm? This, when we understand the essence of the mind, which is ungraspable, then we can also understand the characteristics of the essence, which have the virtues as many as the sense of the Ganges, because the essence of the mind does not think, does not grasp, and does not hold to any differentiation. Hmm? Then we have started in the beginning. We have the essence, which is suchness, which is emptiness. We have the characteristics, which is the purity of the dharmas, connected with the essence, which do not cling to anything, and which can then contain everything when we understand the essence. And then we have the functions. So we have learned that this one mind has a great essence, great characteristics, great functions in the beginning. And these together, they illumine the world from inside and from outside. Hmm? And so we are able to connect to it by either by faith or by logic and correct differentiation and so on. This uh, connecting to it by faith is the subtle. Connecting to it by differentiating mind is more gross, but even differentiating mind, the bodhisattva has to learn the logic also. hmm? And through logic, we can understand also quite clearly that the uh, aim of meditation is to go beyond what is called prapancha, beyond the useless thinking. Because the true mind does not need to think, it just reflects the objects like a mirror. But our mirror, because it is covered by dust, so we don't see that this mirror and the objects which is reflect is one reality. So understanding the mind as suchness makes the revolution of the mind. The mind becomes the wisdom of the great mirror. This wisdom of the great mirror belongs to the alaya consciousness. Hmm? When we have this wisdom of the great mirror, then we can see everything in terms of the sameness, hmm? Our tendencies of the mind, which form the continuity, we will be able to observe with sameness, with full awareness. And then the six consciousnesses, they will act without any obstacles because we don't cling. So let us come to the text. Before we have explained that they are permeation by suchness is by its essence, by its characteristics, and by its functions. Hmm? Now, due to this principle, this essence penetrates everywhere. Hmm? We have learned that uh, when we become confident in suchness, which is the true nature of their mind, then uh, which is our own self, so to say, then we will give rise to bodhicitta and practice accordingly. This is where we finished. When we understand the suchness of the mind, we will give rise to bodhicitta and act accordingly. Act accordingly means we don't want to benefit ourselves, we want to benefit all beings equally, on the base of suchness, dharmata. And this will give powers to our mind, and these powers of the mind will then mature us and mature other beings, because we will become familiar with the Buddha virtues, which spread everywhere. Because the nature of the mind is like Buddha, spreading everywhere without exception. Why? Because the obstacles of the mind, they are by differentiation. So the mind can has a capacity which we have not fully explored of accepting all the objects equally. And that gives a great power to the mind. When we have this power, then we will not believe that any object has any kind of lasting existence, lasting nature. We will see that all objects actually come from the mind, and all that is compounded is just a fabrication of the mind. So we will get the deepest understanding of the Four Noble Truths. According to the scriptures, the disciples, they meditate on the state of dukkha, the unsatisfactoriness of the samsaric state, which is impermanence, and the bodhisattvas, they meditate on the truth of cessation, nirodha. Hmm? The truth of cessation is the ultimate truth. When we understand it in a non dualistic way, then what will happen? It will become the only truth. Uh, there is nothing except nirvana. And this nirvana is connected with uh, unrestricted mind. Hmm? Nirodha, rodha literally means in Sanskrit restriction. So the true mind has no restriction. And it can then contain everything without discrimination. And so the bodhisattva is the one who contemplates on nirvana being the true state. The sutras of the great wisdom, Pragya Paramita Sutras, always emphasize that nirvana is a natural state, prakriti nirvana. But in the tradition of the disciples, it is something which is to be attained. But in the tradition of the non dualistic, it cannot be attained. Hmm? Because you can only attain that which is based on discrimination. So non attainment is a real attainment. When you chant the Heart Sutra, this is what it says. So by non attainment, the Bodhisattva attains. By no wisdom, he understands. So uh, the question is by someone who has not understood the true nature of the mind, evidently, if that is the meaning of the permeation by suchness which penetrates everywhere, uh, it means that all beings are endowed with suchness. Hmm? It says that. And so are all equally permeated by it. So because suchness does not make any difference. Suchness does not think. We think. We make differentiation. Hmm? So if it permeates everywhere, then why there are so great differences in progress among the beings. Some of us don't believe at all. Some of us have faith. Some of us have even some realization. All beings should at once know, hmm, because if the mind is a Buddha, if the mind is a suchness, then all beings should be permeated by that suchness as it is sameness. So all beings then should be endowed with suchness, dharma, hmm, that is uh, with the true nature of the mind. Hmm? So it means they should then, even without using the skillful means, they should understand that their mind is suchness. Hmm? And practice all equally, because everybody is equal in suchness, and equally enter nirvana. Hmm? So if suchness is the only true reality, then it does not make any sense at all that so many great differences among the beings, in all spheres of existence. Some have very, some are very intelligent, some practice with deep faith, some have no faith whatsoever, especially in our time. So it does not make any sense that we are so different. If our nature of the mind is suchness, we should all be aware of it. Hmm? Now, the author answers, suchness is always equally present, yet there are immeasurable, boundless differences, hmm, innate in beings as to their ignorance. Hmm? The Mahayana sutras, like the Lotus Sutra, hmm, teach that the Buddha, being the true mind, is like the sun appearing in the cloudless sky, illumining everything. Or in the language of the Lotus Sutra, it is like the great cloud covering everything and giving the water and life to all beings without exception. Hmm? So, why are we not illumined by that sun of our Buddha nature, by this great cloud which uh, feeds all beings? Hmm? We have learned before that the world is created from suchness. Hmm? So, there have been always differences in character due to differences caused by the uh, nescience, avidya, the ignorance. Hmm? So, due to the differences among beings, they are not real from the point of view of suchness, but they are very, very, very real from the point of view of ignorance, which is the cause of differences. In this tradition, ignorance is the cause of differences. But it does not mean that we should throw away all differences. We should penetrate them on the basis of the suchness. So this suchness is like a potential in our mind, which when we discover it and when we are aware of it, it will help us to achieve the wisdom and illumination, which is the true nature of suchness. Hmm? Wisdom and illumination. The uh, Without them, the suchness cannot manifest. So it will be covered by ignorance. So uh, just like we have learned before, if there is a wind, we have big waves and we have small waves. Some of us, we don't see the nature of their mind because it is covered by small waves. It is covered by a small uh, cover of ignorance. In some of us, it is completely covered, like the uh, the bottom of the ocean or the lake is covered by the big lake, so big waves, so that one does not see anything. So, due to the, as we have learned before, due to the permeation or perfumation of mind by ignorance, we are uh, distant from our own nature, which is always with us. Some are distant more, some are distant less. But as long as we are not fully enlightened Buddhas, we will not understand all the aspects of the phenomena. So, according to Yogacara, like Trimshika Trengwei Shalun, uh, only the Buddha can understand all the aspects of mind only. That everything in the world is mind, and the mind of differentiation creates the uh, reality connected with the with something missing, while the permeation through suchness creates the reality uh, when when we understand it with awareness, then we will be permeated by it and uh, react according to it. So uh, there arise uh, the due to ignorance, there arise the heavy defilements or light defilements according to the seeds in our mind, according to the latent tendencies in our mind. Just like example given before, just like the waves uh, in the ocean, they are not separated from suchness, which is water, hmm? But we take them for the true characteristic of the water, which is not waves, but it which is wetness. We have learned that before. Hmm? So these differences in ignorance make the differences among beings. Some of us have more ignorance, some of us has less ignorance, some of us are completely deluded by clinging to wrong differentiations based on their likings and dislikings. Some are more relaxed, with more mindfulness, with more awareness, and act with less wrong views and with less desire to possess something. Hmm? Thus, all afflictions arise rooted in ignorance. They are countless differences in their order of appearance. Hmm? What does it mean? The differentiations in the world, as the Abhidharma Kosha explains, lokaja, karmaja, loka, vaichitriam. The differences in the world are born of karma. Karma moves the mind, and when the mind is moved, it is connected with the aspect of seeing and the aspect of the seen. And when there is aspect of the seer or evolving mind, then uh, automatically there will be continuity. As when we see or have understanding that all these objects come from the mind itself, from the seeds in our mind, then we will be closer to the true nature of the mind. When we rely completely on a differentiation due to our likings and dislikings, uh, s- motivated by possessing something, hmm, and by appropriating something as belonging to ourselves, only ourselves, not allow anyone to touch it. So we are uh, separated from suchness, which brings equality to the mind, which is actually in all beings equal from the point of view of suchness, from the point of view of the truth of the mind, which is nirvana. So uh, we beings make it very simple. We beings, we are receiving the suchness according to our capability. Those of us who are very intelligent, those of us who have studied much, who have contemplated much, they have deep faith in suchness so that their behavior adopts to suchness. So rather than discriminating, they try to uh, make harmony among beings based on their deeper understanding that actually all beings have the Buddha nature. Why don't we hate others? Because we contemplate this Buddha nature in their mind. Why don't we attach too much to others? Because we contemplate the Buddha nature in them. And this Buddha nature has no clinging, has no grasping, has no anger, has no ignorance. We have the ignorance. And when we have deep ignorance, we completely separate it from the true nature of the mind. When we have less ignorance, we start to understand that the mind is a creator of the objects. The objects are contained in the mind, are led by the mind. So here, when we understand it, we uh, cling less to the objects and to the thinking. So now we have explained how the true essence of the mind, true characteristics of the mind are uh, connected with the true nature of the mind. The mind, we have learned, has the aspect of enlightenment and the aspect of non-enlightenment. Hmm? This aspect of enlightenment brings us to wisdom and clarity. Now, uh, we still need to explain that the inner conditions are always there. The suchness is a true nature of the mind, but we also rely on the outer conditions to understand suchness. We cannot rely only on the principle of the mind having the essence of suchness, and this essence of suchness is always connected with uh, pure virtues. So, having explained the inner condition of understanding the suchness, now we also have to have outer conditions. So, in order to live in accordance with suchness, we need the inner condition which everybody has, only we are separated from it by ignorance, and we need also the outer conditions. Now he explained the outer conditions. Besides, all dharmas of the Buddha have causes and conditions. When these causes and conditions are realized, then we can realize the Buddhahood. So we realize the Buddhahood by uh, causes and conditions, inner and outer, having ripened. The both have to ripen. If only the inner, it is impossible. And he compares it with uh, like like in wood, there is the potential or capability of producing fire. In the old times, the people were producing fire by rubbing the two sticks. This was the method. These matches and so on, it came much later. So the if you rub the wood properly, then you have the chance to create the fire, which is potentially present in the uh, combustible or in the wood. Hmm? They, as Nagarjuna explains in the Mula Madhyamika Karikas, in the uh, verses of the middle way, there is no fire without, no fire can exist without uh, that which is burned by it. That is the uh, what you call it, the combustible, like gas or wood or coals and so on. No fire can exist without these. And again, the potential in coal, in wood, and so on, will not be come to expression without the fire. So they are always mutual dependent. They never exist by themselves. Hmm? Fire cannot exist by themselves, and the combustible on which the fire is dependent also cannot exist by itself. It can only exist by the potential of fire. It cannot exist as fire. Let me see the text. So uh, there has to be a true cause, which is like the potential of beings to Buddhahood, which is called the Foxing, the Buddha nature, or called the metrics of the Tathagatas. But it will not manifest unless we use the skillful means, the upaya. So just like the fire cannot burn by itself, we need a skillful means of bringing it together with that which can burn. So this Buddha nature cannot manifest unless we have a skillful means uh, which enables us to bring this potential of suchness in our mind, which is the actually true nature of our mind, to expression. So the Buddha nature is here compared to fire, and the fire cannot exist without the firewood. So the fire, like the Buddha nature, cannot exist by itself. It exists in relation to the uh, to the true nature of mind in the beings, from which it is never separated. Just like a fire comes to expression through the firewood. So our Buddha nature comes to expression by skillful means through which we can ignite this fire of suchness, which is the uh, true nature of our mind. So we need the understanding of the Dharma nature of our mind, which is the own nature of our mind. And we need also a teacher. We need also the knowledge how to use it. And by correct means, then uh, how to penetrate the true nature of the mind and how to meet um, proper teachers, how to study properly, contemplate properly on it. Then, with these conditions, inner and outer, The inner condition is always there, but without the outer skillful means, it will not come to expression. And when it comes to expression, then we can attain enlightenment. Then we can live fully with the enlightened aspect of the alaya, mm, which will then, uh, so to say, make this non enlightened aspect of the alaya uh, not function. And that is enlightenment. And this enlightened aspect of the alaya, as we have learned before, is the wisdom and the unthinkable skillful means how to enlighten ourselves and enlighten other beings. The bodhisattva does not study just how to enlighten himself, he also studies how to enlighten other beings, what is the nature of the suchness, and how to accumulate the Buddha dharmas through the study of the uh, perfections, mm, and how to accumulate the powers of the Buddha, mm, which is called Prabhavata in Sanskrit, uh, which is not due, as the sutra, the Diamond Sutra explains, which is not due to individual, all these virtues, but they are due to the suchness itself. The true virtues don't belong to individual, they belong to the principle of suchness. When we understand that, our process of enlightenment will can be very speedy. But because we practice uh, giving, we practice discipline, we practice effort, thinking that we are practicing, we are accumulating the virtues. Therefore, we are separated from the suchness, which is characterized by sameness. So this is very important when one practices in this tradition, non-dualistic tradition, when one practices based on the suchness, non-differentiating mind, then the progress in realization can be very fast. But when we gather virtues based on believing that there is a true self which gathers the virtues, a true self which is good or bad, then the progress will be slow. Now, uh, there is a, a sort of misunderstanding that the disciples they only practice by themselves. This is wrong. The disciples also, when they have when they become influential, they also practice on uh, some understanding of the suchness. The suchness brings power into their mind. If they only practice based on the discriminating mind, then their practice will not have power, because the power belongs to that which is beyond individual, however we call it. So, uh, this example of the potential of fire in a firewood is explained in regard to the beings. The same can be applied to sentient beings. So they have power of being permeated by suchness, either in case of realized bodhisattvas by the, the subtle differentiation coming through the understanding of the karmic mind and of the illusion of seer and the seen as being separate, that we can only discover by subtle mind. It is very difficult to see it clearly by a differentiated mind. So same applies to sentient beings. So they have the power of being permeated by suchness, which is natural to all beings. We all have the Buddha nature. So all beings are not separated from suchness from the point of view of the highest reality, not from the point of view of the relative reality. In suchness, nothing can be established. Whatever is established, the Mahayana scriptures explain, is only established in the relative reality. And the purpose of understanding the relative reality is to bring us closer to the true nature of our mind, to the true mind. So the sentient being, though they have the power of being permeated by suchness, we are all permeated by it because it has no limits. We have limits, but the suchness has no limits. Nevertheless, without meeting Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, noble friends who have experience of uh, some kind of deep faith or realization by continuous practice as conditions for using this potential of suchness. And so, without meeting, without using skillful means which are taught by the Buddhas, by Bodhisattvas, by noble friends who have experiences and study of the Dharma. Remember in Buddhism, uh, the uh, the noble friend Kalyana Mitra, Shangzhisha, is taught as a whole path, and not the half path as Ananda believes. It is a whole path because unless we have someone to explain to us the uh, deep aspects of our mind and how to use it, then it will just be a theory. A theory can be very important, but it can only be applied if we have someone who can actually explain it to us and who has realized, be it the bodhisattva realization, which is very rare, but the bodhisattva realization is based on the realization of the faith. And they are definitely those who practice Mahayana. They are among them those who have realized the faith. And so, like the realized disciple, as we have learned in the beginning of our scripture, they see the impermanence as some and the suffering of impermanence not as something which really belongs to us. Hmm? So one can have it either by direct realization when one has become the Sotapanna, entered the Dharma by direct seeing of the Nirvana, but the direct seeing of the Nirvana is opposed to samsara. A bodhisattva who has realized the faith, he has the understanding that there is something beyond suffering which is real, just like a realized disciple. The impermanence is not real. Because impermanence is not real, he uh, may produce all kinds of defilements, but he does not, uh, he does not, his mind is not formed by them. He understands them as not being true mind because they don't last. One who has not realized the faith, or one who has not realized the uh, the enlightenment of the disciples, the stream entry, then he identifies these defilements. It is me, I am bad, I am good. But one who has realized the faith, or who has realized the nirvana as opposed to samsara as being the true reality, then the defilements will be there, but they will not have continuity because he has realized something which is not does not belong to any individual. So it is impossible that we abandon defilements and realize nirvana by ourselves. We need conditions, the deep faith, and we need the meet some experience noble friends who can then guide us to conceive true belief in the nature of our mind, which is nirvana, whether we believe in it to be something opposite to samsara, or when we practice the uh, bodhisattva way as something belonging to all beings. Hmm? It doesn't really matter when we have realized our faith, or when we have realized uh, something which is beyond the suffering of impermanence. The defilements will be there, but they will not last. So we need definitely both. We need the power of the insight coming from our own mind and faith in the true nature of the mind being the suchness, and true nature of reality being also the suchness permeating everything. So without external condition and without the internal condition of having unshakable faith in our mind being the suchness, being nirvana. So uh, nobody will be able to realize his potential, and nobody will be able to practice the conditions for realizing one's potential. That is the disenchantment from the world. Unless we are disenchanted from the world, hmm, which is mm, which does not belong to us, then we will not disentangle from our uh, defilements. We will not be able to practice the correct effort, mindfulness, and awareness, so as to uh, see and realize completely that this ignorance with which we are connected actually uh, is not true. That is why that is the meaning actually of dependent origination, which is Buddha explained starting with ignorance. Because we start, because we have ignorance, we produce karma. And because we produce karma, we hold to the differentiations of the mind as something actually existing. So, in other words, in order to realize the uh, truth of our mind, which is nirvana, then we need the inner conditions and the outer conditions, the external and the internal power of conditions, which we need to learn how to coordinate so as to be able to go deep into the uh, realization of the true nature of our mind. So the next part of this treatise is connected with the function. We have analyzed the uh, essence and the characteristics which uh, imbue the beings. Then uh, we have to also understand the function. The function means belongs to the latent tendencies of the mind, which permeate the mind. As we have learned, either they are tendencies toward ignorance or they are tendencies toward suchness. Now we are uh, talking about suchness. So, what is the opposite of wisdom? What is the essence of ignorance? The essence of ignorance, according to Buddhism, same in in all traditions, is the perversion of our views, perversion of our perception, and perversion of our differentiation. Because we have these perversions, so we don't see the nirvana nature of our mind. So they are the content of our ignorance. We should see this very clearly. So the external conditions They are many, many kinds, but the author tries to make them accessible to us, as he always does, by differentiation. Usually two kinds, like we have the subtle mind and the gross mind, and we have the uh, subtle mind and the gross mind in understanding the objects, subtle mind and gross mind in understanding the illusionary thinking, the subtle mind and gross mind in understanding ignorance, and subtle mind and gross mind also in penetrating the suchness. So we have uh, two kinds of uh, the conditions, the power of external conditions, the conditions of differentiation, and the condition of sameness. So we have this function of suchness, the external conditions of suchness is uh, the the cause, the cause of our approach to suchness is through the alaya consciousness. So the alaya consciousness is governed by the karmic consciousness, which moves the mind due to the seeds of previous uh, karmas or samskaras or formations in our mind. But we also need this in order to understand the power of permeation of the suchness. We are not the Buddhas. We can only understand it by intermediary of the alaya consciousness, because we are not yet Buddhas. Even so, we have the mind, which has the same nature as the Buddhas. We are not yet Buddhas. We are basing our knowledge on the uh, function of permeation of mind, either in a gross way or in the subtle way. So the bodhisattvas, because they have the uh, subtle understanding, so uh, so they do not differentiate between themselves and other beings, which gives the power to their mind, the power of compassion, which is, as we have said, the practice of bodhisattva is the practice of realization, the bodhicitta. Hmm? The realization of bodhicitta is possible by non dualistic wisdom and by uh, the compassion. The non dualistic wisdom, as we have learned, will never come to expression without the skillful means. There is always the wisdom and the skillful means, and it will bloom due to the development of bodhicitta based on compassion. If the compassion is deep, the bodhicitta will guide us. If the compassion is uh, shallow, it will not be clear. And the great compassion is based on the uh, great Maitri, the great love for all beings, because we understand that, in fact, in this tradition, all beings are inseparable from the Buddha, which is their true nature. So, uh, so the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas who are realized, they manifest the bodies according to the conditions of beings. How the suchness is revealed to the beings depends on the uh, our ability. We have explained that, to accept suchness. When we have the ability to accept suchness, then the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas and the noble friends will be able to bring our bodhicitta to perfection. When we don't have, then they will have to use only very rough means, not any subtle means. And if they, if we have a deep understanding of suchness, then they can uh, discover, make us discover in us the uh, three bodies, the Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, which is based on the subtle cognition connected to its samadhi of suchness, which creates the pure lands and the pure mm, shapes, which are characterized by sameness. Like in Amitabha Sutra, all is the same, all is a level, and all is the ornaments. These ornaments, they are ornaments from understanding the uh, subtle mind, which reveals the body of enjoyment, the body of created by samadhi. So he explains that there are two conditions. One is by the gross mind, one is by the subtle mind. And the subtle mind is connected with manas, as we have learned. This manas develops from the mind itself, and together with alaya, it brings a continuity to the mind. And based on this continuity, without being aware where it comes from, we then form our uh, greed and wrong views, which are connected with a gross thinking, not with subtle thinking. So the conditions of differentiation means that a person who relies on Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Bodhisattvas, and so on, from the initial arising of bodhicitta, they search due to this function of the suchness, they search the great realization or great Tao, the great path to realization, non dualistic realization. until they attain the Buddhahood. So uh, they, on the base of understanding that uh, we beings are limited and that we are um, clinging to the differentiations which have no uh, real reality. They have reality in our mind itself. It does not mean we don't need differentiation. We definitely need it. But we need the great Tao not to grasp for the differentiation. And this great Tao is based on these vows of the Bodhisattva. Chung Sang Wupian Shen Tu Fan Na Wuqian Shen Tuan Fa Men Wu Liang Shen Xue Fa Ta Wu Shang Shen Chen. I vow to uh, enlighten all beings, not only just myself. I vow to eliminate all defilements, not only my. I vow to learn all the dharmas for that purpose, not only for my own enlightenment. And I vow to attain the, the true mind, which is a Buddha mind, which is without restrictions, permeating everywhere, and reflecting reality just like mirror. So, if we are the function of suchness uh, start to work in us, then we will meet the Buddhas or Bodhisattvas or noble friends. And then these Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and noble friends, realized noble friends, uh, we have learned the subtle mind has a great wisdom and has unthinkable karma. So these noble friends, they can manifest to us not as we think they should be. They can manifest as relatives, as parents. This is they will manifest in the created body, nirmana kaya, not in the subtle body, which is a base of the sambhoga kaya, which is linked to samadhi and which is linked to understanding of the dharma kaya, which is sameness. So they will then manifest these noble friends, bodhisattvas, buddhas as relatives, parents, or uh, as our attendants, as friends, or even as enemies. They may seem to be enemies, but actually they will open our mind to deeper understanding. So even our enemies, when we understand the function of suchness, can be of great benefit for us, and they may manifest in dreams, they may manifest in all kinds of uh, situations, so as by their great compassion to lead us uh, to the dharma and to the four samgraha vastu. Samgraha vastu means uh, to collecting the beings on the base of the four methods which summarize the skillful means for leading the beings to realization of the Dharma. So it is first the dana, the giving. They may gain us for Dharma by act of giving, which will please us, and so we will uh, be influenced by their generosity, which actually belongs to the Dharma. The generosity of is of Dharma, but it will manifest through beings. Then they will speak Priya Vacha, they will speak very uh, 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 Priya Vacha, how to translate? They will speak the kind words to us as to gain us for the Dharma when we are met with kind words and when we are given gifts. So we may turn to the Dharma. Then they will gain us for Dharma by uh, the beneficial activities which they make, and also by their equanimity and by their understanding that all beings are actually equal in their essence. So, this is the function of the Dharma, which manifests according to our ability of deluded beings to be influenced by it and to imbibe it through these means of meeting friends, enemies, parents. All this is just a manifestation of the function of the Dharma. Because when we have faith in the Dharma will manifest. So we will meet people who have generosity. We will meet people of who have who will speak kindly to us when we are depressed and sad. Then people who will do something beneficial for us and for others, and people who have understanding that the true mind does not differentiate, yet it uses differentiations to understand how to benefit beings. Hmm? So, uh, for these noble friends, everything is equal, but we are able to accept this equality, which is innate in the mind, by skillful means only, and by association with those which can gain us for Dharma. Even by our enemies, we think that they are enemies, but they may be doing uh, these motivations of the bodhisattvas are actually unthinkable. You can read in the Huineng Sutra, sometimes even beating out of compassion to bring the disciple to realization of the faith in his own mind. So now we have already surpassed our time. Let us finish here and please give it a thought. We have 1 week. Today is 23. The next week is I will be in my center in Shirdi. which is a very remote place. I will go there on 29th. Before that, I have to give some small teachings at the Mumbai University. But I will go there on 29th, and hopefully there will be uh, internet available. Huh? I cannot guarantee, but should be. I will probably have to buy some more fund for the internet because my the fund is getting exhausted. In here in my flat, I have the internet, so I don't need to rely on the um, what you call it, the charging, no, not charging. What it is when you put the money into the internet to be able to receive the
Like
what you call
internet
it
packets, maybe the packets.
package. Yeah. Okay. I will have to do some packaging so that I'm sure it will be enough. And let us see how the internet works in the remote part of India, 250 kilometers away from Mumbai. Let us see. Hmm? Okay, so let us now transfer merit for the benefit of all sentient beings, and let us try to give rise to great compassion so that we understand all sentient beings as being a part, inseparable part of ourselves. 愿你这功德普济一切，我等一众生皆苦成佛道。May the merits of this deficient teaching spread to all beings so that we all attain the state of perfection, the state of Buddhahood. Om Ni Padme. Okay, so thank you, my friend, for uh, overtaking this broadcasting or how you call it. And we keep in touch, huh? Okay. And then when I'm back in Czech, we can decide when is a good time for you to visit and have some rest from your uh, uh, busy life in a busy country. Hmm? Okay, bye.
Bye.
Thank you,
谢谢师傅。
Bante.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bante.
Thank you, Dhamadipa.
Bye.
Okay, Lars. You are driving, huh?
Bante.
Okay, bye.
Bye.